Okay, can you guys hear me at home? Julia? Christina? Mackenzie? Huh. Can you guys hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, good. Mackenzie, good. That's what I was looking for. So let's start off. I still don't have many PowerPoint presentations yet. I have a couple of them I have from Christina, Julia, and Mackenzie, you three guys. I got those. And I put them on my OneDrive, but I was kind of hoping I'd get a bunch more. So what I'd like to do is just for anybody who hasn't turned them in, this offer. If you can bring it in on a flash drive on Monday, I'll take it. But this is like so crazy. I got many in this class who aren't doing the work, and unlike you guys, they're not showing up on Zoom or in class. I don't know, but it's their grade. So anyway, but this is being recorded. I want them to see this. Hopefully they'll take a look at it in the media gallery. And so I've been waiting for this part of the class for a few months. Actually, this is the part of the class that I like, chapter 32. And it's basically what's going on in the world today. Most of the people that you'll see here are really, they're still alive. And so one of the trends in contemporary art is that issues germane to the artist, ethnicity, culture, nationality, issues of gender, etc. They play an important part in art now. And we didn't really see that until this chapter. I mean, you know, we've seen a lot of things pointing inwardly, as we discussed, and pointing outwardly, but never this kind of statement about one's own identity, nationality, gender, ethnicity, so on. So I start this chapter with this artist. Her name is Jane Quick2C Smith. So what might you think?
It's like a nickname.
Oh, her name, no, that's her name. She's native, indigenous. And so in a lot of indigenous cultures, they have a different way of naming, taking names. And so you got people like, say for instance, famous ones, Sitting Bull, or Great Bear, you know, and this is one of those kinds of names, Quick2C, and they give these names at birth. And they typically describe, not all indigenous people are this way, but they describe who this baby is. Strong like a bull, sitting bull, named after an eagle. And I would venture to say that Jane Quick to See Smith, the Quick to See is her native name. And I'm sure that as a baby, she was very alert, quick to see. Just saying, there are a lot of ways that people get names. My name's Bohack. You guys knew that. You know what that means? In my native country, over 100 years ago, my family moved to the US, came through Ellis Island. They came from Czechoslovakia. And that's not far from Ukraine. It's that Eastern European Slavic languages. And it would have been pronounced back in Europe, in Czechoslovakia, Czech Republic today, Bohach. And it means rich man. Just say. Of course, I am rich in many ways, but not monetarily. But bottom line is, what the people, Jane Quick to See Smith, came from, they're not really that much different in how they name. But here, take a look at the artwork, which is the important part. And so let's zoom in on some of this. Whoa, what's all this stuff she has hanging from a chain? What is it? I got my granddaughter here today, by the way. What is it, Akira? There's a hat, there's more than one hat. Here's one, there's another. And it's got a license plate, got other gear, some swag, bumper stickers. What is the common theme? Souvenirs, and they are from, these are from sports teams, more or less, but from teams that have been named after Native Americans, and many are not really too thrilled about being called a redskin or the Cleveland Indians and such. And in fact, it's seen by many as racially derogatory. It's an ethnic slur. And so this is really kind of cool because in a lot of ways, see, this was made in 92. So that's like 30 years ago. And since that time, I'm gonna zoom in again. The Cleveland Indians have changed their name. They've taken the name the Guardians. They got rid of this. And this little figure on here, his title, he was the mascot of the Cleveland Indians and had been for decades. He is Chief Wahoo. So we got some Red Man chewing tobacco, Florida State Seminoles, Washington Redskins. They're not called the Redskins anymore. You football fans know that they are, what are they called now? The Commanders? Yeah, they just changed it recently. Oh, I got somebody coming in. Brandis, good. So that's really what this is about. Now take a look at the title. Gifts for trading land with white people. And there are many stories about how when the Europeans came over to North America and South America, oftentimes they gave the native people some trinkets or beads or something and stuff. But at any rate, that's what this is all about. It's got here painted in the middle of it, a canoe. And what you got here is all different kinds of collage elements. Geronimo right here. We got, we got just different little depictions of various depictions of native people. Here's somebody, feather, spear, sort of the stereotypical images, but look at how this is painted too. I want you to think about that as well. Does this remind you of anybody's painting? Was somebody we didn't talk about very much, but was in the 50s? Robert Rauschenberg. We got one called Canyon. It's in the book. 1950. So anyway, she's taken some of the ways that some of the artists had developed art making from abstract expressionism and Rauschenberg, which is technically pop or neo-Dada, but this is really right out of the playbook. But she's employing it for a message, a statement about the exploitation of Native Americans. And so, yeah, we got Kansas City Chiefs, still haven't changed. Indians have changed. Red Man Tobacco. Anyway, this actually reminds me a lot of an artist I knew that actually knew Jane Quick to See Smith. And she would take photographs of logos, and they would be black and white photographs, and she would color them in with that color racistly called Indian red, which is you see it here a lot, actually, that color. That's this color. That's it. This is Indian red. Just say it. And her name's Shan Goshorn. You could Google her if you like. So she died a few years ago. She's a friend of mine. And she took those logos and took black and white photos of them and colored them with Indian red. And so there were things like the logo from a Jeep Cherokee, or Land O'Lakes butter, or even Red Man Tobacco, and so on. But at any rate, this is a sea change. We got Richard Hamilton, and he's doing collages, and it's more or less about the consumer culture. This is about, in a lot of ways, civil rights and political injustice. So yeah, it's identity. Jean-Michel Basquiat, 1983, is kind of old. He's really actually a pretty famous artist. How many of you heard of Basquiat?
I think I've probably heard his name once before.
Yeah, see, this is kind of a tragedy, which is why we have classes. So you can learn about this stuff. But basically what Basquiat, his legacy is that in the 80s, he was in downtown, Lower East Side, Manhattan. And he was a Haitian young artist. And what he did was graffiti art. And he was doing graffiti art all over the place. And it started showing up and people started seeing, oh, look at this. This is unusual. He wasn't tagging with so much with spray cans like a lot of street artists do, but he was using it. The imagery actually looked a lot like this. And a lot of people noticed it. And one of the people that noticed it was Andy Warhol. And he said, you know, I really like this stuff. It's very direct. It's unschooled. You wouldn't draw this face like this for your studio drawing class, would you? No. That's what I mean about unschooled, but it was raw. And this was not the result of somebody in an art class teaching Jean-Michel how to draw faces and what composition is and what art is per se. It was very direct. And that was the charm. That was the hook. That's what interested a lot of people in graffiti art because it was new and it was fresh and it wasn't coming through the mainstream. It was people like Basquiat, who was just an artist because he was an artist, not like he went to school and trained for it. He was a natural. And so anyway, he started making paintings. Galleries started to pick up on him. And actually, as I said, Andy Warhol, quote, discovered him. Warhol invited Basquiat to come in and do graffiti on Warhol paintings. It was a collaboration. And so anyway, like a lot of things in the 80s, this was tragic because Jean-Michel Basquiat died young. He contracted HIV and died of AIDS at a young age. But he left enough work, and he's an important part of art history. So anyway, we're seeing these people that would have been in the past considered to be outsiders. Native American women, street artists. There were a lot of people that were not included in the mainstream art, in the gallery, museum, critical system. And so this is starting to open up. And so here, look, I'll show you, this is like really cool. This was a film. You can always see if there's a film about an artist, he was probably pretty significant. So anyway, this is Jeffrey Wright as Jean-Michel Basquiat. There's David Bowie as Andy Warhol. And I know this is Dennis Hopper, and I think he was, I'm trying to remember, Leo Castelli, gallery owner, who handled Warhol works and was open to a lot of his ideas. And I don't know who the other guy is, but it's been a while since I saw the movie, like 20 years. Bottom line, in 1981, a 19-year-old unknown graffiti writer took the New York art world by storm. The rest is art history. Basquiat. Kerry James Marshall. The style. 1993. I like this guy a lot, never met him, but I like him a lot. And one of the reasons I like him is that he kind of does, to me, two things that are extremely significant. One is that he paints about life in the African American community. I love this. And these are always picked, this is in the barber shop. The style, you see in the movies, barber shop and stuff. I mean, everybody from the old school knows that the barber shop was really kind of a big hangout in the community. And so anyway, that's how Kerry James Marshall grew up. And so that's really what this is about. Now there's a little play on words here. He calls this the style. In Dutch, that's also the name that they gave to Piet Mondrian's work, the red and white and yellow and blue squares, rectangles, the grid pattern, abstract art associated with Bauhaus. They call that the style. So anyway, that's kind of really pretty funny, actually. And this other thing, like I say, he knows his art history, Kerry James Marshall. And the other part is that oftentimes Kerry James Marshall depicts Black people, and he is African American, by the way. He paints them Black. That's like crazy. Black people exist in language, but in reality, Black people, I mean, I know some dark-skinned folks, but it's kind of a play on words too. And so that's kind of one of the things that you kind of see crop up in a lot of this. This is all considered to be postmodern work. And that is to think about how the work translates into language and play with that tension between language and how we speak and visual information, what we see. And so that's happening here. And I love it. He is so good. Lorna Simpson, stereo styles, black and white Polaroid prints. Another African-American artist giving. She's doing a number of things here. She's showing various different hairstyles and some of the language. Language is a big thing here. Language is actually a big thing with this too. When we're talking about Redskins and Indians and stuff like that, the language is really one of the more objectionable parts of this piece. Language is important here, as he does oil paint stick and he writes stuff. And as it says here, graffiti writer. Language becomes very important. Language is important here, the tension between Black people and the color Black. And so here we have Lorna Simpson, and she's putting in here all of these descriptors about the hairstyles. And who's the subject? African American women, and a variety of things done with the hair. And this is kind of a thing from my generation too, is that there's always been this issue about hair with a lot of people, a lot of African-American people. Even, how many of you seen the movie Malcolm X? Denzel, you seen it, Kaylee?
No, it's been a while.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna kind of focus in on one little part, and it's kind of early on. And that is that Spike Lee, who's playing Malcolm Little's friend, Shorty, and Denzel, who's playing Malcolm Little, who changed his name to Malcolm X. They show them in the 40s, and they were getting their hair straightened. You remember seeing that? Oh, it was awful too. They had all of these chemicals and stuff, and it was burning their, they're going, stop it, It was a thing. There was something, people would not do that so much anymore. But at any rate, another African-American artist, and I can see why I'm kind of liking this part of the course. Kehinde Wiley. He is, by the way, the artist who painted the official portrait of Barack Obama when he left office. And you can Google that, Barack Obama's portrait. But Kehinde Wiley, Napoleon leading the army over the Alps, 2005. Well, I'll put this very bluntly. As I was saying, we're starting to include a lot of people in mainstream art and people who were not necessarily welcomed. Almost all of the people we've seen have been white males. And then an occasional Lee Krasner or Mary Cassatt would be included. And I've talked about that all the time through this course, that we've had a Judith Leister or Artemisia Gentileschi, Angelica Kaufman, Vijay Lebrun, number of people. But they were only uncovered since, most of them since the 1980s. Cassatt was always pretty big. But at any rate, part of the reason we weren't finding a lot of artists that were not white males is that it was pretty much segregation, period. No ifs, ands, or buts. And so anyway, I went, Kehinde Wiley. This guy is like, so I love this guy too. Never met him, but I picked up on his work actually a long time ago, way before 2005. And this is actually at the Brooklyn Museum. And I've seen this. This is like in the main lobby. It's like huge, as you can see, 9 feet by 9 feet. But what Wiley does is that he takes just ordinary, regular people, African Americans, and he paints them as though they are subjects of famous paintings. And so this is a lot like this, you see. And this is by Jacques-Louis David, Napoleon crossing the Alps. And you see that here. Bonaparte. Anyway, bottom line, here he is. And as a matter of content, he's not only painting like these Baroque painters and those neoclassical painters, he's rewriting the history, putting in people of African American descent. which I love. And if you didn't know about Napoleon crossing the Alps, this may not mean too much. And so that is really kind of another layer of meaning in postmodern art. And so, like I was talking about Robert Rauschenberg, if you know about Rauschenberg, this in a lot of ways makes a lot more sense. And if you dug deeply in Rauschenberg, you would see that he basically just kind of collects stuff at random and plasters them into the painting. And you can see here, it's not all, see, we've got an American flag here. See, it's not all entirely about stereotypes, but bottom line, Kehinde Wiley. And it says, analyze the use of a contemporary artist of the subject matter or styles for a prior. I pulled that out of one of the learning objectives. This was in the teacher's stuff. And I thought it was important enough to show you. Sometimes I do these things and I don't bring up the objectives, but this is so common that if you know about art history, a lot of things being done today will make a lot more sense. And I got to add that in this period in time, it's a lot different than what I asked you before about abstract art of the 1920s, 30s, and 40s, and why people did not understand it or were hostile to it. David, you wrote about Brancusi. Haley, I'm trying to remember. Did you do Guernica? What'd you do? I don't remember either. But somebody did, there were a couple of Cubist works in there, and there were, there was a Stuart Davis in there and different things. Anyway, bottom line is that today, a lot of this is a lot more accessible, but it's even more accessible if you know art history. Here's another example. This is not particularly in the book. We saw this, Marcel Duchamp's fountain. And we got this. What the heck? It's a urinal too. What? Golden potty. Yeah, kid, that's exactly right. And so this one's gold plated and sits in the museum. And so this relates to that. This is a kind of a statement about the whole thing. And the other part of it is that if you were talking about what was worth what, this is probably, even though this is covered in gold, this one's much more valuable. Even though it's just ceramic, part of art history. And so, Melvin Edwards, Tambo, welded steel. And this is kind of an interesting thing. It's kind of like Cubist sculpture. It's kind of like found object sculpture. But if you take a look at at the stuff he's assembled here. Got a shovel, he's got a spear, he's got a monkey wrench and some tools and chain and stuff. So it's about being working, people that work. This is all stuff, and perhaps even with the lock and the chain, maybe it's making an allusion to slavery. And so list examples of artists for whom gender and sexuality are central themes. And this gets us into feminist art. And this is from Art in America. And this was a piece that was done by a woman named Mary Beth Edelson. And she did a collage, pasted the faces of women on the Last Supper, a reproduction, The Last Supper by Leonardo da Vinci. And so around the perimeter, we have the life and biographies of women artists, some living American women artists. And so this is feminism at 40, which meant that, let's see, this was probably produced around 2010. But at any rate, this piece here was really important. And again, if you think about pasting the faces of women on something like this, this is the Last Supper, but in some ways it is the pantheon of holy figures in Christianity. It's Christ and the 12 disciples. And I used to know all of these, and I don't remember them so much anymore, but I know that this is Louise Nevelson, and I know that this is Georgia O'Keeffe. And somewhere around here, I remember that Yoko Ono was included in here. I have to, at any rate, Lee Krasner's in there, so on. Oh, there's Yoko right there in the corner. Just say it. And so, Faith Ringgold, Who's Afraid of Aunt Jemima? And so this is kind of about, this is about a lot of things. And Faith Ringgold is an artist who made quilts. African-American woman does her work on quilts. A quilt and book by Faith Ringgold. So think about this. Part of the reason that women artists of all colors were excluded from the canon, the official listing of artists, the canon. You want to know what the canon is? It's in Gardner's Art Through the Ages. That is canonical, as they say. That is the canon. These are the accepted norms. These are the accepted important people. Partly why women were not in there was, at least according to some feminist critics and even Faith Ringgold herself, would say that they were practicing a kind of art that was basically shunned by the galleries and art museums and critics and textbooks. And doing quilts was one of those art forms that never really was taken seriously by all of those people, all of those entities. And so Faith is kind of early on in this. This is from 83, and she's doing this quilt and book. A lot of her work is truly autobiographical. And these are family members and other people she met. Whoa, that's me, and that's Faith Ringgold. I got to meet her in 1997 when I was teaching at Truman State University. We brought her in to be a visiting artist. And as you can see, what these are, slide carousels. We didn't have digital back in 97 before you were born. We had to do things on slide projector in 35mm slides. Yeah, go ahead. And so that's what she brought, because she was going to show us some of her art and do some lectures and things. And this is me meeting her at the airport. And I was 25 years younger then. But at any rate, the title here, Who's Afraid of Aunt Jemima? I want to show you. Oh, I don't have it.
I have.
Yeah, who said that?
It was me.
Brandis. Have you ever seen, I wanted to talk about something that I thought I had a slide of here. This is more Faith Ringgold, but the title, it says, Who's Afraid of Aunt Jemima? I'm going to show you another illustration, not in the book, but I gotta go online to get it. It's real famous. I'll be able to find it, I am sure. If I can get to this, and what you got there? Betty Saar, American artist, contemporary of, and let's see some images. And knit. And so let me make sure you guys are seeing this. You are. Excellent. This piece by Betty Saar is titled, Who's Afraid of Aunt Jemima? Now, you know, a lot of this stuff that I've been showing you today has at least been partly some of the impetus for changing things. And you can see they're finally changing the name of the Washington Redskins and stuff like that. And one of the things that they've changed here recently within the last 4 years was Aunt Jemima's image on the pancake mix box. Kaylee shaking her head. You know about that too, David. Good. And so that was another thing that artists were calling out, if you will. And Betty Saar was one of them. And this, can I get this? This is called The Liberation of Aunt Jemima. I'm gonna see if I can visit this and maybe get a better Betty Saar, The Liberation of Aunt Jemima. And I gotta make sure you guys are still seeing it. Yeah, good. And so this is like a little box. It's like a shadow box. And it has this statue, this little thing, kind of racist depiction of Aunt Jemima. And in one hand, she's got a broom, the other hand, she's got a rifle. And Betty Saar was making a statement about the same issues that Jane Quick to See Smith was talking about with derogatory, unflattering, racist images that permeate society. So anyway, I want to kind of point this out because, oh, see, look at this. Allison Saar, Carrie James Marshall, and do I don't see Faith Ringgold on there, but Faith Ringgold was actually a friend of Betty Saar. And her piece, Who's Afraid of Aunt Jemima? See, I picked up Faith Ringgold from the airport in Kansas City, and I got to drive her back or drive her to Truman. So I had like about 3 hours and a dinner with her, and we talked about a lot of stuff, and she was friends with Betty Saar, and she was saying, have a second opinion, she didn't think anything was wrong with Aunt Jemima, in that she thought that was a reasonably a reasonably appropriate image. And you see, that's what's on the back, in the background here. Those are Aunt Jemima pancake. But she thought that Aunt Jemima, she said, well, look, there's nothing wrong with Aunt Jemima. Just saying. And it won't let me zoom in on this. But at any rate, sometimes they contradict. Sometimes not everybody agrees. But what I'm saying, this is central to understanding. And so let me see. Slideshow from beginning. Wanted to show you just one more. Do women have to be naked to get into the Metropolitan Museum? This is a poster that in its original form, it was a billboard in New York. And it says less than 5% of the artists in the modern art sections are women, but 85% of the nudes are female. This is activist art. And I got to meet some of these Guerrilla Girls too. In fact, they signed this for my daughter, for Dory. Stay, I gotta zoom in, I don't know what they said. Stay true to who you are. Love, Guerrilla Girls. Rosa and I don't remember. Rosie, anyway. David's got to leave. Randus, I just wanted to say one thing. If you could finish up that PowerPoint and bring it in on a flash drive on Monday. Think you could get that done?
Yeah, but I don't know if I'll have a flash drive. I have Google Drive. Would that be able to work?
Yeah, you can put it in Google Docs or something.
Oh,
But
okay.
but you got to give me access.
Oh, okay, I will.
All right, good.
Also, did you get my that other quiz? I know I sent you quiz
Yeah.
5, but
Quiz 5.
the other one, I think was the one where I forgot which one it was, but it was
Um,
I think I had uploaded on Canvas, but I had uploaded through the comment thing because it was closed.
okay, I got it. Take a look at your grades and make sure they're straight, but I got it and it was good.
Oh, okay.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you. So everyone, you guys are the ones that mostly have it all caught up, so. Have a great weekend. I'll see you on Monday. Tick, tick, tick. We're almost done with this semester.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. See you, Mackenzie.
Have a good weekend.
You too, Christina.